Joining me today is New Hampshire State Senator David Pierce, and you're running District 5.
I am.
So let's continue our conversation.
Sure.
Let's look at the next biennium.
Okay.
Before I get to sort of some of the issues that are driving you, I think the 800-pound gorilla in the first year is going to be the budget.
Always is.
Is it an expense issue that we're going to face, or a revenue issue, or what combination of the two?
I think it's going to. I think it's a revenue issue because to say that there is a lot of fat in the New Hampshire budget ignores reality. We have state agencies that can't do their jobs because there are not enough resources for them to do so. I serve on the Public and Municipal Affairs Committee, just take an example. And there are a lot of investigations that the law requires the Attorney General to take into to initiate after an election. You know, if someone signs an affidavit, for instance, in order to get their ballot rather than showing a photo ID. They are so backed up in those investigations because they just don't have the resources. To say that the agencies are adequately funded ignores reality, and I think twists it in order to gain political advantage.
So if it's expenses have to go up, or right?
Expenses are going up, and cutting revenues and cutting expenses doesn't make the cost go away. I mean, this past year we raised the gas tax by a small amount, 4 cents a gallon. But you know, when that hike went into effect, the average price of gasoline was $3.50 something a gallon. Now it's $3.39 a gallon. So even though the tax has gone into effect, the price of gasoline per gallon at the pump is lower today. And that's what I argued all along, is that tax increase is not passed on to the consumer. It's eaten by the oil companies because the price of gasoline is driven by the market price of crude oil. And so the reluctance for political reasons to not raise the gas tax, and this is just an example, to fix our roads and bridges is not only an anti-business vote, which the Business Industry Association said, but it just ignores a basic responsibility I think we have to our state.
So are casinos a solution to the revenue side of the equation?
I don't believe they are. I've never been in favor of a casino. The New Hampshire's Fiscal Policy Institute issued a report a few years ago when Governor Hassan issued her proposal for a casino. And they said, with absolutely everything taken into account, both on the revenue and the expense side, that the casino would cost New Hampshire about $10 million a year more than it would take in. My take on that is that there is no experience of any state that has gambled itself into prosperity, not one. And I think more to the point too is that those revenues are not sustainable, because if we are building a budget based on giving a private company a license, an exclusive license, a monopoly on it, which I think there's some constitutional issues there actually under the state constitution, then that company really has the state over the barrel. It can dictate how much it's going to pay in taxes, because if we're building a budget around what it's doing, then we really are at their mercy. And if they decide to pull out tomorrow, which would be completely their right to do, then we've lost that big chunk of expected revenue, and the budget just goes haywire.
Or my guess would be most companies would say, look, you want those dollars, you need to give A, B, and C to get it.
Right, exactly.
I mean, as a business negotiating.
Right.
That would be how I'd negotiate.
You know, I look back into the late 60s, early 70s, when then Governor Walter Peterson put together a statewide task force that I believe he chaired. I'm not sure of this, but that at the time he recognized there was a structural problem with New Hampshire's revenue side, and brought people together with different disciplines from all across the spectrum. And out of that commission came the business profits tax and the business enterprise tax. And that, because a broad spectrum of people recognize that we have a structural revenue problem in this state.
And we got about 50 seconds left.
Sure.
So let's turn to from something else.
Okay.
How about the Medicaid expansion and sort of the reauthorization of that? Is that an issue you're following?
It is, definitely. I mean, we passed Medicaid expansion this time. 58,000 people have been benefited or potentially benefited by it. I believe 20,000 have signed up for it at this point. But we wrote into the bill that it automatically sunsets at the end of 2016. So unless we put a bill in and pass a bill that affirmatively reauthorizes Medicaid expansion will die on December 31st, 2016. If it dies on December 31st, 2016, then those 30,000 families will be thrown out onto the street. They have health coverage now. They won't have it on January 1st, 2017.
And do you think more people will get more health coverage as there are more people competing? I mean,
Yes.
in 2015,
Yes.
we got to, what, 5 companies competing?
There are a lot more companies competing to build networks to get into that network, into that product.
Okay, well, we're out of time.
That's a shame. I enjoy these discussions.